Put your safety goggles on. It's gonna be a ride. Welcome back to DTF Garage. We are working on Project XR2 SuperCoupe, the 2000 ZX3 rear-wheel drive Focus. Right now I am working on making a mounting plate for the Supercharger to bolt to from the 91 Thunderbird SuperCoupe. I went ahead and made a very professional template out of cardboard, so I know what size I need in order to drill the holes. I've got my piece of metal cut out to match, and I'm going to be drilling holes in that so we can figure out how to get this supercharger mounted onto the engine. This is the part of the show where I have to start fabricating all my own stuff, because while rear-wheel drive swapping Z-Techs is popular overseas with the Mark 1 and Mark 2 Escorts, it's not as popular over in the States, especially putting it into a Focus. No one really has parts for that, and no one has parts for sticking a M90 supercharger from a Thunderbird SuperCoupe onto your Z-Tech. So this is the part where I have to start making all my own brackets and fabricating a bunch of stuff. By no means do I claim to be a professional or have professional tools or milling machines or anything. I'm doing most of this with a hand drill and a grinder. I also probably would not recommend doing anything that I do at home, as again, I don't claim to know what I'm doing or claim to be professional when it comes to any of this. I just got the metal plate for the Supercharger. Oh, that's hot. This is probably one of many that I'm going to need, but this is going to be the one that bolts to the engine. And then I'm going to have a plate coming to the bottom for the Supercharger to sit on. So we're going to go ahead and check these bolt holes that I drill and hope they line up.
So I got the plate lined up into position. All the holes that I drilled worked out perfectly, didn't have to really make any adjustments. So I went ahead and welded some 1-inch spacers onto the back. I didn't need it sitting directly up against the engine, I did need it pushed away a little bit, so these 1-inch spacers helped give me the correct offset that I needed. Here you can see the completed bracket with the shelf for the Supercharger, as well as the welded reinforcements to keep it all together. Also at this time, I originally had the engine sitting underneath the car, but I went to raise it into position and realized that with the transmission, it was actually too wide for the hole that I'd cut in the front subframe. So I had to take the engine back out of the car so I could cut another 1.5 inches out at each side of the subframe to fit the transmission bell housing. Now, since I had the engine out of the car, I figured it would be a good time to go ahead and get the starter mounted. This does require grinding of the windage tray. Had to take quite a bit of metal off there, but I was able to get it ground down and get the starter mounted to the RX-8 transmission bell housing. So that all worked out nicely.
Well, I have the engine situated in the vehicle so I can finally start making mounts for it. And the issue that I'm running into right now is on the Supercharger mount and the amount of space that I have in the engine bay. This flange comes out over 7 inches past the side of the Supercharger, and I have about 2 inches of working room on that side with the Supercharger mounted between that and the frame. So this flange is not going to work. I'm going to have to cut this and do something with this pipe so it's going to sit in, maybe bring that up a little higher than this currently sits, so I can mount that elsewhere and have room for everything to fit inside the engine bay. Because as you can see, there is not much room between the frame and where the supercharger is going to sit. So I'm gonna have to do a little reworking on that, but I do have the engine in place, so I can get the mounts done up for the engine and transmission, and that's about where it's gonna sit. So I'm pretty happy with the way it is looking right now. After a lot of minor adjustments, I have the engine sitting perfectly where I want it. And as you can see, it is tilting a little bit towards the driver's side of the vehicle. Now, the reason for this is because, again, this is a front-wheel drive engine, and that's how it sits in that vehicle. So as you go down towards the oil pan, you can see that the oil pan is actually level in this position. So that will prevent against any oil starvation issues that I may run across, again, switching from a front-wheel drive to a rear-wheel drive application. I was able to get everything done on the supercharger that I needed to get done to fit in the engine bay of this car. I used some aluminum welding rod to create this output flange on this, because this was facing the wrong direction and the input and output were basically colliding with each other. So this sits nice and close to the side of the supercharger here and gives me a little bit of clearance, about a ½ inch of clearance in between it and the frame of the vehicle. And I was also able to make this input flange as well, save that 7 inches that it was coming out way too far and hitting the frame with. So with both of these pipes, it makes it really nice and easy to mount turbo couplers and piping to, and everything fits nice in the engine bay. That will fit right over here, come up and over. So this is going to be the intake going into the back of the supercharger. This is going to be the exit. So now that I've got this done, I can focus on making the engine mount brackets so they don't interfere with everything here, and it's all going to come together nice. And that's going to be on our next video. I did end up having to change the way that that's going to work. My original plan of using the factory engine mounts was not going to work. So unfortunately I have to change my route, but that's okay. Not a problem. We've done enough customizing thus far, so a little bit more is not going to be an issue. So hopefully we'll get those up in the next week or so here. Thanks for watching our 3rd installment of Project XR2 SuperCoupe. Make sure to stay tuned for our next episode, where we will be making the engine mounts and transmission mount to actually hold the engine to the vehicle. It's going to be interesting because we're going to have to completely revamp the way that I was originally planning on doing the motor mounts and transmission mounts. So should be interesting. Be sure to check out our Instagram if you want to stay up to date with things that are going on. It does take me a couple weeks to get these videos together and kind of process them and everything. So if you're wanting to see what I'm doing to the car in live time, Instagram and Facebook at DTF Garage. You can see everything that's going on as I'm actually doing it. Also, make sure to check out our new website, dtfgarage.com. We've got tons of awesome automotive decals, vinyl, lots of good stuff on there. Sometimes I throw car parts and stuff on there if I'm looking to sell them. So a bunch of good stuff there. Thanks again for watching DTF Garage, and as always, stay boosted. Of Project XR2 SuperCoupe. Fucking completely missed the engine. We're so good. Nothing makes sense anymore.